about it tonight. No use sitting around and nothing's addressed.
Anybody need agendas?
We'll just have to get people together. Take up
Well, I
this
guarantee you that's gonna happen. Mr. Chairman,
5 seconds.
nice talking to you.
Welcome. Tonight is regular committee meeting of the Public Works Committee, scheduled for 6 p.m. Tuesday, July 2nd in the first floor conference room. My name is Thad Kuchak. I'm the chairperson of the committee. We'll go around the table and the room as well for everybody to introduce themselves.
Lee Graff, committee person.
Shane Lavery.
Jennifer Gossett.
Scott Keller, Alderman.
Jake Kavanaugh, alderperson.
Joe Terry, Director of Public Works.
Tom Realm, committee member.
All right, that takes care of item number 1, call to order. Item number 2, review and consider approving a revised state municipal for 2nd Avenue South and Seneca Road Highway Safety Improvement Project ID 6999-03-12/22/72. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that project design identified that hazardous materials are within the work area of the project and will be impacted by the project, requiring additional costs for monitoring, testing, reporting, and disposal of the material during construction. This was a bit of a surprise to us when we came to the council to request to partner with the state in this. It's actually the state requested the city to partner on a safety project at Seneca Road and 2nd Avenue South to segregate the right turn lane there. There's probably about 3,000 vehicles a day that turn off of Seneca Road that are heading east to head north on 2nd Avenue South. And there have been a few significant accidents there where the right turn vehicle that's heading south on 2nd Avenue South, because of the curve, shadows or hides the through vehicle, and that left turn vehicle pulls out thinking that it's all clear, and all of a sudden they get hit. And so it was a safety grant project that the state asked the city to participate in. We were looking at, roughly $2,500 to $5,000 worth of cost share, because we would share in a small percentage of the engineering costs only, no real estate, no construction costs. Since that project was built in, what would that have been, about 2003, 2005?
About 15 years ago, yeah.
Somewhere in there. There was no anticipation of any hazardous materials because it should have been taken care of in that project. However, during design, the DOT is concerned that now that there could be, and is looking to revise the project agreement. And so the staff, the city engineer and I met with the DOT. We're very disappointed that we were looking at a project that we were partnering at an extremely nominal sum, and now they're looking at about $35,000 towards potentially towards hazardous material cleanup. The problem that we have is that because we signed the agreement and hazardous material cleanup is in the fine print in the agreement, if we choose to abandon the agreement altogether at this point, the city would be on the hook for about $75,000 because we'd be on the hook for all the engineering costs for basically abandoning the project. So the options that we have at this time are to approve the revised agreement and continue to work with the DOT to find ways to reduce costs where appropriate, and the DOT engineers have been working with us and have several different options to in attempt to minimize any soil excavation, which would then minimize any hazardous material removal, should they exist. Or we could not approve the revised agreement, which would cancel the project and require all the design fees to be paid by the city, which is about $75,000. So as staff, we reluctantly recommend approving the revised agreement and chalk one up for experience, I guess, on some of these projects. As staff, I probably feel a little bit different if this were a project that the city initiated. But rather it was a project the state initiated, and again, the projected costs were so minimal, it was looked like a great project. So.
All right, so
Is this right on the corner? Or, I mean,
It is.
from the filling station that used to be there,
Correct.
way back when?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so far back, I remember being there, but barely remember that operating. But it's a long ago, it's been vacant. But when that was redone, that road was all dug up.
It was.
I mean, because that, around the curve there is where that road every spring would heave and whatever, so they dug way down.
Correct.
Actually, to correct that problem of the road, how it was there, because every spring it, you know, it was up and down.
Yeah. And the elevation of the road itself was lowered.
Yeah, right.
And so we had expected that in order to excavate and blend back in and match, that there would be no materials there. Well, that was
That's why it's surprising it wasn't.
that was a poor
something
assumption
done
on
way
our
back
part of
when.
staff. At the end of the day, it's still an inexpensive project for a significant safety upgrade. But it's not what we expected, and it's not what we proposed to the council in the first place. This was supposed to be a $5,000 project, not a $35,000 project.
just a couple of questions for informational purposes. Working with the state on these projects, is this just a one-off, or is this something that we would want to be cautious of going forward?
No, it's
That could happen
something
again?
we want to be cautious of moving forward. The rules have changed in recent years on participation in some of these projects. And we need to be pretty cautious. On some of the projects where it's a 20% match, for example. This is not exactly this one, but it's the same concept. There's a 20% match based on preliminary design, and if the city engages in something like that, such as our East Grand project, during the preliminary design process, the state decides, well, the dollar amount in the package seems too high, so we're going to reduce that. And all of a sudden, it's bid day, and the project costs significantly more than what was anticipated. Well, because it was already reduced, the city's on the hook for everything above and beyond. And that's not the way it used to be. It used to be a share, where, you know, it was an 80-20 split. It was an 80-20 split. And what's concerning is that could be a challenge for a municipality to be surprised by the difference in cost, right? So, so we do need to be careful when we partner on these projects in the future, and really understand all of the potential liability. Like I say, even today, I wouldn't have predicted that there'd be any material there. And when construction actually takes place, maybe there won't be, and we won't have those costs.
That brings me to our next question. Could it be more than the 35K?
I don't think so, because what that does is it takes into account that all of the material that needs to be excavated is in fact contaminated, needs to be processed.
Okay.
As an example, on our East Grand Avenue project, you know, we had a consultant testing company on site, and the areas where the tests had indicated we'd have contaminated materials, those materials were tested and checked and determined to be beneath any threshold that would require that material to be removed and processed. Likewise, on this project, if some of that material is suitable to be reused, it can be put back in where it came out. So, you know, it may not cost that much, and I'm hopeful that it won't, but it could.
Mr. Terry, where did they come up with the assumption that there might be some contamination? Because, for example, in terms of a timeline, and I remember vividly when we talked about this project, and I think I made the motion, it was suggested about $5,000, and it's a no-brainer to fix this
Right.
intersection, or this T intersection, or this thoroughfare. Where did the assumption get generated, or how did it get assumed that now there could be liability of up to this $35,000?
So it was through the DOT's design process. They did a phase 1 and, phase 2 environmental, and came to the conclusion that there's a probability that there's contaminated material there. So it was probably about 2 months ago when we found out, and due to timing, we weren't able to get this item on the agenda last month, but it was about 2 months ago. We met with the DOT, had discussions, and put together the referral. So it was well after, and we've had a couple design progress meetings on this project, and at that time there was no suggestion that this might be the case. It was, I would say, about 2 months ago when we first were informed.
So there wasn't like a core sample done, or like any physical sample, there's just a potential assumption that there is?
No, there were samples taken.
Okay.
Yes.
My question is how would we have come up with the evaluation that there was going to be $1,159 toward hazardous materials to be taken care of on the project to begin with? So there had to be some sort of initial
We wouldn't
sample.
have. Oh, right. We wouldn't have.
I'm not saying to the amount
Mhm.
or the toxicity of the samples. What I'm saying is how did it even become a line item at $1,159 on a course of the bid through the DOT? When the project was brought to us, and don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with cleaning this up.
Yep.
We have to clean it up. We have an old contaminated soil, and this is cost of doing business.
Right.
Well, my question is that we had, and per your conversation earlier, when you started it all, you said that because there was already hazardous material in the $5,000 evaluation that we would have had to come up with.
No, the $5,000 was the city's portion of the engineering design cost for the project.
Yeah, but I mean, just looking at the referral, it's, it's up from $1,159.
Yeah, because that includes, that $35,000 includes the hazardous materials plus the city's contribution towards the design.
The 1159 is the design contribution.
Yeah, and like I said, we had expected that it would be around 5,000 all in. When all was said
Oh,
and
this
done.
1159 wasn't actually hazardous material. It wasn't a line item as a hazardous material?
No. Right.
I was just asking the question because when you first started speaking, you said because we had a line item as hazardous material in this.
No, there is an item in the contract that if there are hazardous materials found, the municipality,
Oh, that's not the.
because it's a connecting highway, if it weren't a connecting highway, if it were a DOT-owned right-of-way, it'd be different. But because it's a connecting highway, the city actually owns the right-of-way. The language in the contract is that if contaminated materials are found, the municipality's on the hook for cleanup.
You know what's interesting is we talk about this project being done in 2005, let's say. Not saying they would have eradicated all of the contaminated soil because they would have dealt with what was in the right-of-way that they were dealing with, right?
Correct.
Does the DOT have a record of, I mean, we don't hold that because it was a DOT project. Would they have a record of possible contamination and?
They removed a bunch. That's why as staff, we had every reason to believe that there wasn't any.
Did they come up to you and say that we removed hazardous materials out of the
No,
site?
no, I was around when that project took place. I saw them removing them, and yeah.
I guess this is what I'm getting at, is if we are aware that we're doing we talked about being close to projects and we gotta be choosy with the cost share. Maybe it's standard procedure, maybe we need to come up with a policy that if a project before has noted that there are hazardous material, we
Sure.
have to do soil borings in order for us to understand what the costs are. And then comes the point of how expensive is soil boring, right? Because you're not gonna just soil bore every project that you do.
Right,
I mean, you're gonna test it as you excavate it, but you're not gonna.
right. Yeah, to do a phase one analysis, I'd have to look and see what, what we've paid in the past for, service consultants to help us with those.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see if we know that there's the likelihood of a contaminated soil, like say this let's talk strictly about this project. We knew that there was hazardous material because of the old filling station that was there. Would that automatically prompt us to do soil samples or bore samples in order to find out cost? I mean, I don't know if that's appropriate or not appropriate. I'm just asking the question.
Well, we wouldn't necessarily even know what those costs are though until the preliminary design is done.
True.
To what extent they'd have to be removed. But yes,
I'm-
and that's what we did on our East Grand project.
Right, that's what I mean. We knew
Right.
about it.
Right.
Mr. Canada, you have something?
No, the question was answered. Follow up there.
One quick question, and we'll get to the vote on this. You kind of alluded to, Mr. Terry, about how in the past, it used to be a straight up 80-20, and the little bit of experience that I've had in the past, knowing that 80-20, but things have changed with the state as far as agreeing to the straight up 80-20. Has that happened rather recently? And is there a possibility that we need to start looking at how we vote for our state legislators in terms of how local government needs to operate? Because in my opinion, there has been a taking, and if this is a case where we need to be cognizant and hold our state representatives accountable in terms of the policies that they make that directly burden us in terms of making decisions for taxpayer dollars, maybe we need to change there too.
Yeah, it is, and we certainly have to take a look. Our experience on our East Grand project is a perfect example. We've got 2 other similar grants for East and West Jackson that are out there. And as we move forward, if we're awarded those, we need to be moving forward with both eyes open, that the 80-20 may not really be 80-20 at the end of the day. And we have to be well aware of that, what our liabilities could be. Because once we've signed the agreement, we're on the hook.
Does our attorney review this contract before we sign it?
Sure.
They're the state contracts.
These are standard. Yeah. The difference here is that what the state has done due to cost overruns on their own projects is they just put caps. And if it exceeds the cap, the municipality's in 100%. The 8th Street and East Grand intersection had some cost overruns. There were some change orders that were required during the project. Unforeseen circumstances, the city was on the hook for 100% of those, and it was frustrating because the project was not supposed to cost what it did, and there was no cost share in the change orders. It was the municipality completely on the hook. So it's something we need to be aware of. And again, it may not change the city's decision. It's still funding that assists in performing projects. In many cases, much needed. The project may not be affordable without it. But it's making sure that our expectations aren't improper, that we understand what the project scope is and what the costs are and what the liabilities could be.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll make a motion to approve and I want to say it the right way, approve the revised state municipal contract for the Second Avenue South and Seneca Road Highway Safety Improvement Project ID 6999-03-12/22/72.
I'll second.
I got a motion on the floor and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3, review and consider areas of public access at and around Norton Pond. And this was by Mr. Rayo. And this was kind of, I threw that on there because I had questions myself in terms of, because although when I was a kid, I don't think that we ever made it to that area. I'm very familiar with Norton Pond, but I think that it has always been prohibited public use in that area. And I guess that, you know, that there must be more deeper history with that, and I would assume that it has to do with liability, but is there a possibility you had mentioned about people walking around the pond, or?
That was the interest that I had, that people were out biking or even just walking their dogs, you know, to be able to go in there, walk around the pond, or sit down and rest after biking or whatever, you know, or sit with their dogs and that type of stuff. Talked with Joe, I think might have a little more to say. If it was always posted, I don't remember that.
Where is Norton
wait.
Pond? I thought it was
Between 22nd and 3rd.
Yeah,
To
It's right over by
the north
Washington
of
Squash
the
and
Norton
the
Street.
Birds.
I just wanted to make sure I was.
Yeah.
kitty corner by Kingston, if you take
Yeah,
Kingston
yeah.
off, right before there.
I mean, it's a nice area as far as the, you know, the grassy area around it and that. It's mowed. It's not a park. I don't know that it's always been posted. There was way back a serious accident that did take place there.
Okay.
A long time ago, 30 years ago or more, I think even. I could be wrong on that, but
Yeah, I know.
I do say, you know, and I think Joe has some things to add, but I think there has been people that are in there now. Actually, you know, and one of the things that I had said, I think, when I brought this up a couple times was about not looking at fishing and that type of stuff, but there is some of that that's occurring. And people are driving back in there. It's surrounded by trees, so unless you look, it's hard to, you ain't gonna notice anybody back in there. But I think, Joel, if you have something to add there?
Sure, yeah, so when this referral came up about maybe a year ago,
Yeah,
a little less
probably
maybe,
that,
it was
yeah.
late last
It's
fall or
been a
something.
while.
Staff had looked at the situation, and from the information that we could gather, there was, I think, a fatal incident there once upon a time that resulted in the city making sure that it was signed for people to stay out. It's pretty evident that people do hike around that pond. The path is well worn, and the thought was, well, is there a way to make that property accessible and still safe? And so I brought it up to the Parks Commission sometime last fall and discussed it with staff. We believe that there's a way to re-sign that to essentially inform the public about the dangers of that particular water body while allowing public access, and also improving. There's a wooded area to the west of the pond. We've walked through there, and we think that we can brush some of that out and create some trails actually, and you know, and turn it into a park-like area. That said, we haven't had time to make that a priority to come back with something at this time, but it is certainly on our radar that you know, we think that we can do that. And again, if we have a little bit of downtime where we can do some trimming work, I think we can prep some trails, we can make some suggestions for signs. So if it's okay, I'd like to keep this on the referral list, and at which point we have a you know, a recommendation on how to proceed, making sure that the city attorney is okay with it, we can bring it back.
how do we treat other landlocked bodies of water that are on city property? I mean, Norton's not the only pond that, so do we have the same signage at,
No, no. There's other stormwater management areas. You know, the one at the zoo, we're promoting a path around that one. Yeah, it's to some extent, to what extent is it an attractive nuisance versus, you know, what type of public accessibility? So I think each one would be potentially reviewed separately, you know, conditionally.
is that because of different liabilities lie with each pond? I mean, I
think so.
I feel like they would all be
Yeah, the ponds are different. Some ponds have some pretty deep areas. Some of them, the way the stormwater flow is designed in an event, there could be quite a bit of channelized flow in what appears to just be a pond. But in effort to try to segregate sedimentation, there's different features in the pond underwater that aren't necessarily apparent to folks. They wouldn't necessarily know that those dangers exist. And in some areas, there's other parks and facilities, and they're kept up differently so that there's just not a general desire by the public to use those areas.
That sparks another question. So if we did decide to open this up, because right now nobody's supposed to be there, we decided to open up, that would add maintenance as well, I mean, upkeep, or?
Not much more than
Not
what
much.
there is now.
Okay.
The wooded areas, once we brush that out, you know, an occasional walk through to rebrush it if need be. The trails around the pond, people are already, those are trodden paths around the pond right now, so whoever's using them are using them, and I don't think that there would be much for upkeep. We do mow around the pond as just part of stormwater management, but I don't foresee that location costing any more in maintenance than what it would now. Or if it does, it would be very insignificant.
Right. Great, well then I'll keep that, we'll keep that on the referral list. We'll move to item number 4, review and consider amending ordinance 2.09, subparent 21, subparent A, wastewater treatment commission to allow the chairperson of the Public Works Committee to appoint a Public Works Committee member of the wastewater treatment commission. And this is one thing that Mr. Terry looked into, and I had taken what he had and took it to the next level of actually creating an ordinance change, because originally it was recommended that the chairperson would just have to reach out to someone if the chairperson wasn't available every month, but then this actually assigns someone. So I got the language that's specific in the referral, and basically all it is just including, if you look at, is it in red that you guys got for that? It's just including language that says, including a member of the Public Works Committee appointed by the city, by the chairperson of the Public Works Committee. So by amending that kind of potentially solves the issue with the chairperson not being able to go to the wastewater treatment commission. Yes, sir.
Yes, my only thought is if we've gone to that point, why not just open it up to a council person like we will with water and light? And why is there so specific that it's a Public Works Committee member?
Yeah, correct. The reason, and I'm not opposed to it at all. This is one thing to initiate the process of discussion. So the reason why I wrote that is if the committee itself did have a desire in terms of keeping it within the committee itself, but if that's the case where the committee doesn't have a problem in opening it up to the process with other commission members, absolutely, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
Just kind of creates a bigger pool for you to possibly draw somebody from.
Correct. Yeah, and again, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but there was a starting point, and this is the starting point that I started.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, was it the council president was chairperson of finance at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's all it was. I thought of that a couple times here
Yeah,
recently.
so now
myself.
it's changed back with Gene Young back then to
How
hold it
when
up.
it was changed, I couldn't put a handle on that. That was, if it was a rule really or not, or just what was done. You know, I don't know. But, I guess for myself, it's if there's a difference between, and I spoke about the water and light at the last council meeting, that to me we should to designate it to a certain committee. With this, I think, is that the wastewater does fall under public works, and that's why I'd be in favor of keeping it that way. I don't know that we have to change the ordinance, and that it's the chair is the delegate. That if the chair can't go, can ask somebody to, I can't go this month, or do you want to sit in for me, if I can't make it, do you want to be the one, or something like that. I don't know that we really got to change the ordinance, but that's, I guess I think that because of that it does fall under public works jurisdiction, is that I think it should stay within that committee.
And as far as that goes, yeah, what I want to do is absolutely respect even the position of chairperson, but it's a case where I would be interested in opting in to going to a meeting if I had the opportunity, but working during the daytime, a 7 to 3:30 type of a shift. If I had gotten rained out, then that would be the opportunity for me to do it, but it's a case where probably 11 out of 12 months I would be looking for someone, and the last couple months, because of my absence, we haven't had someone sit on there, so the due diligence of that. But again, I mean, it's up to the committee. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think the chairperson would have that flexibility. The last sentence of that particular paragraph does read, the chairperson of the Public Works Committee may designate a member of said committee to substitute for him or her in said commission in case of absence. Whether that was a one-time absence or, all the time, I think that flexibility does exist, but I have no issue with what's proposed either.
And I guess the reason why, looking at that for clarification on that one, because I looked at that, Mr. Tier, as well, in terms of that would be a legal out that I would have if I was, put in a position, but for continuity reasons, having someone else that could fill in multiple times or consistently instead of trying to scramble, and then if I forget, if I don't put it in my phone, my schedule, then I guess long story short, like I said, if I can't make the commitment, if I did, I don't have vacation time, I don't have sick leave, I don't have anything like that in construction. If I work locally, I wouldn't have a problem taking off 2 hours or 3 hours, or would be, and I would just tell my employer that that's the case. But if I'm working in Weston or if I'm down in Toma, it isn't a possibility for me. So having a consistent person there that could rely on their own schedule, knowing that they would be there or not, and if that's a case where we can open it up to the rest of the council too, like I said, I guess in this I'm trying to solve a potential problem that I know that exists with my own schedule.
So do you think that as it's written, you wouldn't be able to suggest to appoint someone essentially for every month unless you could come?
Correct. That's what I see with
Okay.
The way that I
now.
interpret
Sure.
it. I don't think that I can appoint a permanent replacement for me. The way that I interpret it, I see that it's a one-off every
Okay.
month, and that's why I'm suggesting changing the ordinance. But I don't know. Does that make sense with the committee? And if so, would you like to be on that commission?
I
guess my only thought to it is would it have to be, going to kind of echo what Shane said, couldn't it just be a council member? Because if you say you sat on the finance and property committee, but you were interested in wastewater treatment or wanted to sit in on it, it puts more people in the know at council to make decisions. If you have it strictly to this committee, we typically are involved with a lot of street activities and, you know, park activities and stuff like that. We're already involved with it because of our position on the Public Works Committee. So does it make sense to open it up to a member of council in order to get more information out there? I guess that's where I'm struggling. Because it doesn't matter to me. I mean, if you make it a member of the Public Works Committee, I'm okay with that. If we made it a member of the council, I'm okay with that as well. Because your appointments to committees are based off of the mayor's appointments. So if you got appointed to, say you're really interested in the maintenance or public works, but you got appointed to HR, but maybe you'd still be interested in making those meetings. That's where I'm at with it, but I'm okay with whatever. I mean, to me, it gives the chairperson the ability to flex it out if it doesn't work in their schedule. Hardest thing about politics is it's literally for people that don't work during the day. You know, because you can't make meetings, you can't, because you work 7 to 3 or whatever. It's a very tough job. So if there's a way we can offer flexibility in some language, that I'm fine with that.
I do think it's good to have the person as a member of Public Works, just because, like Tom said, it is a Public Works activity. There are times where some consistency between reviewing the Public Works reports and what's going on in wastewater, things like that. But that said, if there is an issue with meeting dates and times, there is nothing written in stone, I don't think, that meeting has to happen at 1:30 p.m. It has, but it could change to accommodate folks too. I mean, and I think that would be the next step, that if there wasn't somebody on Public Works that could attend when it's currently being held, that, you know, meeting needs to be scheduled so that it accommodates all the members, right?
What if we were to leave this as is, operate as, in the short term anyway, that, you know, unless you can go, that, and, you know, if you went, that you asked, I guess, one of us if we'd go for in the short term, but I think, and it's something that I've kicked around in my own mind, but also, that Joe just mentioned about the time, and what you have alluded to, Lee, is that it is a problem for day workers to attend daytime meetings, and I, you know, it's you can look at the county board and whatever.
Perfect example.
Problems, you know, people to run for office for something like that. So that to continue as we are in the short term, but to look at possibly changing the time of that, and, you know, see what the, I mean, it can be done, to bring it up to the commission to, you know, see what the thoughts there would be about changing, like the, I don't know, 4 o'clock or something like that, or 4:30. I hate to say a specific time, but something later in the day.
And I would be fine with that, because I could be able to make meetings, and I'm not looking to try and get I apologize. I'm not trying to look at skipping a meeting to get out of a meeting.
Right.
But yeah, right now. So and if that's the pleasure of the committee, I can absolutely do that. I can see if I can attend the next committee.
I think there's a meeting tomorrow. If
Bring it up as a referral.
neither one of you can't make it, I think I can. I don't have my book with me, but I think I could go tomorrow. That I would go tomorrow, and then for the short term, we operate as we have that it is, and see if other, such as changing the time, could be done to accommodate it.
And I knowingly know that even if it was raining tomorrow, the job that I'm on, we're pushing, so it's a case where even if it's raining at 1:30, we're going to be sitting waiting for the rain to move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you would be willing to attend
I'll
that
go
meeting
tomorrow. Yeah.
wonderful. So with that being said, I won't make the motion, I'll call for motion. If there is interest in a motion, therefore a second to proceed on this, otherwise we will not. If I don't hear a motion and a second, we won't proceed on this. We'll take it as it is right now, see if we can potentially change the time frame from that and address it at a later date. Any motion on the floor? Motion on the floor, motion on the floor. I hear none. We will move to item number 5. Review and consider storm sewer study for 1 Mile Creek from 16th Street to 2 Mile Avenue. The reason why I bring this up is because I want to say during budget time, there was a suggestion that there was monies either being requested to be allocated or monies, and I did look at the budget to see if there was actually monies allocated for a potential study, feasibility study for stormwater management or whatever the terminology would be, from about the corner of Expressway and 16th Street all the way through to 2 Mile. And this is one thing that I wanted to say. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Blazer, but you had also gotten resident concern of, and it had been another resident contacted me about this in the short term about that. So I don't know. That was the question I had for you.
So we have some money budgeted to do some work around airport,
Was it Airport, Woodland, that kind of?
that area. The area you're discussing, we did not. We did do some investigation though. I think it was last fall, to look into what a study would cost. And we got a budget number of $120,000. Seeing that entire area is private property, and there is a misconception generally that the requests from folks, and they've been persistent, is about dredging that. The city has dredged parts of the 1 Mile numerous times, and it has made the problem worse. The reason for that is that the natural characteristics of a stream is to cut to a point that it's not going to cut anymore, and you have channel flow. When you dredge it and open it up, you no longer have that channelized flow. The velocities are way down. We have the problems that we have. So the solution to this problem is likely going to be a stream restoration project, which will be an expensive project, requires a significant amount of coordination from the DNR. Not to say it's not a good project for us to eventually endeavor. At this time, though, we had not budgeted for a study. And I've talked to several residents in the area also, and have let them know kind of the same, that a dredging operation, while intuitively you might think it makes sense, with the flows in that area, it does not, and would require a thorough stream study and a restoration project.
Is there any way to kick more water in there to get it flowing quicker, to maybe kind of enhance some of that channeling?
Just to address that, if anybody's watching or there are parts of the stream that does not flow very much, if at all,
right,
and that would be on the more northern side, northwestern side, and then the more southern east side, it flows too much. So yeah, we've almost got kind of a 2-layer problem.
I know by me it gets really stagnant and green, and like 12th and Huntington there.
Yes.
And further down it just turns into a stinky muck pit. But yeah, so I didn't know if there was somehow increasing flow.
And that's been the history of that particular water channel, is that due to flooding areas, once upon a time the city restricted some of the flow, and now you've got some of that side effect, unintended consequence, whatever. So you've got some folks that are happy that it's not flooding as frequently. You got other folks that are concerned that it's stagnant. And again, I think a more thorough stream reconstruction, stream rehabilitation could assist with some of that. But again, it'd be a big project. Something we can certainly look into.
That's great. That's what I'd like to hear. So with anything further on that, we'll move from item number 5 to item number 6, Director of Public Works report.
In light of the meeting that is waiting for us, I'm going to forego, except for mentioning, I want to congratulate Rich Hines from the engineering department, one of the civil engineering techs that retired, and Pat Ethier from wastewater, one of our collection system maintenance operators, also retired. And so those folks serve the city well, and we're anxious to replace them. And this is a really busy year, so we're trying to get them replaced as soon as we can. The remainder of the report is online right now on the homepage of the Public Works section.
How's the garbage carts distribution going? 'Cause
So
I
the
think next week
distribution,
we
I
start.
believe, may have concluded today or is concluding today. If not, it'll be tomorrow. We've had a number of people put their carts out already, just haven't read the literature, but we are ready to go. We do have a truck rented because our truck is not finished yet, and we've taken that truck out and practiced with it to make sure that our staff's comfortable with it, and yeah, we're ready to go.
Anything further?
When will our truck be?
It may not be till late August. We do have our backup truck. We bought a used truck from the city of Oshkosh. It's basically a backup for our recycling truck in case we had a breakdown. So we did only rent one truck because of the cost. If we have a breakdown, you know, we're gonna probably have to work evenings or something to get caught up. But hopefully that's for a short period of time, and so far the truck that we've rented has the same body manufacturer as the one that we own. It's both of them that we own, and we've had extremely good luck. They've been very reliable, and our staff knows how to operate them and maintain them. So confident it's going to be a smooth rollout.
I'm amazed that I've gotten some phone calls now, how upset people are that they can't take their couches off the curb anymore.
Yeah.
And I seem to recall a big uproar. Now it's really quieted down when we stopped taking white goods at the city garage. You know, it was going to be mass chaos. They're going to be laying everywhere. And gladly that isn't the case. And it's just the way life is.
I know most of the folks that have called and complained to me, you know, they either have a service bring their couch in, the store that they purchased it from, which can take it away, or they had a family member bring it in a truck or trailer, in which case they can also take it away. So in most cases, where there's a will, there's a way, and
Absolutely.
it can be taken care of.
Anything else? We'll go from item number 6 to item number 7, review referral list. East Street is still on there, we'll keep that. Alderperson Kellogg, this has been on here for a while. Referral to discuss a neighborhood cleanup program. And just wondering if you wanted to have it kind of kept on there, or if there's any more interest, do you know, or?
Chad Will did a fantastic job in Ward 1, and my constituents said, well, why can't we do it in one of my wards? And so when I was on Public Works, I brought it up. That was a long time ago. And so I'm not interested in continuing it, in the sense that what he did was great, but you had to get a lot of your constituents involved. And then there were some problems in talking to them, like tires were brought over from another city or dumped in that ward, and it was complex. However, I did look at online for ideas, and there was a city in Canada that does a goods exchange weekend, where sometimes you don't have enough to put out there, but you have an item that you don't want, and as all of us have done, maybe, like I bought a new vacuum cleaner and I put it out, and 2 hours later it was gone, the old one. So this city has done it for a number of years, and it was a way of people just exchanging, and whatever's left, the city would, let's say if a large amount, you would have to get a ticket, and the city would pick it up. Otherwise, you gotta bring it back in. But it was that one weekend. I was thinking it would be interesting to explore it more, and even try it in a ward. And I wouldn't mind trying it in one of mine. It's a different idea, and to start something like that. But we talk about like recycling. We have the library with fantastic solar panels. We got a Metallico recycling aluminum, and you're saving energy because you're not making these products. You're saving rather than putting in the ground fill and so forth. And it's an idea to explore. And if we did it in one ward, it may be advantageous. And if it's a bomb, then it's a bomb. But it's interesting to explore that. And I could call that city, or Joe and I could, and see what went well, what didn't go well, and before we venture out. But that's the only idea that I think would be interesting. So,
Is that similar to Grand Rapids Choose to Reuse program?
yeah, but they have one location, volunteers, and you have to, and items come from throughout, like I know some people from Wisconsin Rapids would take to Choose to Reuse.
Okay.
And so I'm saying it would just be exchange, just putting things out there that are of decent quality. And hopefully people, you might have an old crib that you don't want, and there's a young family, and I need one, and pick it up. It's just an idea, but something to think about. But Choose to Reuse, I've gone there several times, and it's a big undertaking of volunteers, and people are bringing product from outside of Grand Rapids over there, and I don't know if we want that. That's basically what I have for that.
Well, that's a wonderful idea. So what we'll do is we'll just keep this on here as a placeholder. We won't worry about changing the language, but it'll be something that when something comes to fruition, then we can have it on there.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Develop a street resurfacing program separate but complementary to the chip seal and street replacement program. I think obviously we want to continue that. Request from all diverse places to connect storm sewer on 21st Place to Airport Ave. We don't have much more information on that, but I want to keep that one on there for your constituents.
There's been a little bit of research done. I think there'll be a report next month.
Okay.
Good.
Good, yeah.
I'm gonna call over there to see what the grade is done, if it's.
Yeah, groundwater's up.
I spoke to the guy back on Pine, and he said his pump has been running quite a bit now.
In some of our research, we discovered that in the central sands area, an inch of rain, because of the porosity of the soils, that can result into 6 to 10 inches of groundwater change. Just because of the density of the soils and the porosity. So, I hopefully have some type of a report for you next month.
Potential last one, request to review a multi-year capital improvements plan. We want to keep that one on there. And then
Actually, I'd like to request that for next month.
Okay.
Because I think this is the time that we need to start talking about it prior to budget. We gotta start writing.
So a draft of that is complete, and been trying to coordinate between the finance director, myself, and the mayor, and with the accounting software work. That's been a challenge. It's actually been done for about a month and a half, but it just hasn't been time to coordinate. So
for your wherewithal, I actually got it in my notes for August for the public works committee.
Got a quick question.
Yeah.
How many miles of roads did we fix last year? It was just under a mile, right?
Of reconstruction.
Reconstruction. How much are we reconstructing this year?
I can get back to you on that. I'd have to look at our projects, and it's probably a little more than that this year.
Is that the question I have is that our guys doing the reconstruction, or are you including the state reconstruction?
I'm including the East Grand Avenue project.
Right, but I'd be curious to see what our group is doing.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
And then the last thing I'm going to add real quick from discussion earlier is we'll keep public access for Norton Pond on here. But otherwise, it seems like everybody's hearing more of what talk to them.
Well, if there's nothing else,
I'll request a motion to
Mr. Chair.
adjourn.
You got it? So motion by Mr. Graff, second by Mr. Rayholm to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned at 6:55 PM. Thank you, everybody.